My name is Jordan Redfield Wade. By day, I'm a PI working for the NACPD. But by night, my friends, my family, and I fight for the city in a different way. We are the guardians of Newark City. I promised my mother as she lay dying that I would protect and defend this city from anyone that would mean to cause it harm. I am a protector. I am a guardian. I am Red Wing. Episode 10. Start a War. The room was lit only by the light of the full moon, and the candles held by the people robed in deep red, the color of blood. The figures were chanting together, an unholy cadence that would have chilled the body of any non-believers. They had been waiting so long for this day. The energy in the air was palpable. The chanting grew in volume as the excitement rose to a fever pitch. Every one of the figures faced a raised platform on which sat a black-veiled pulpit. Behind the podium on the wall was a statue made of ancient gold. It was the enormous golden head of the North African lion, with her ruby eyes lined in black, with her fangs and black-rimmed maw dripping what looked like blood. Indeed, it was blood, for in the lion's mouth, on her tongue, lay a fresh, bleeding human heart, a fresh sacrifice to an ancient and bloodthirsty god. There were human skulls at the base of the wall underneath the lion's head, the remains of the followers who had become willing sacrifices. If you looked at the lion, you got the sense that she was grinning and ready to bite down on what, no doubt, she thought would be a tasty, succulent morsel. A figure approached the pulpit. His robes appeared to be black, but as he passed through the candlelight, they were revealed to be the same deep blood-red color, but more ornate, with black markings all over it. As he reached the pulpit, he lowered his hood, revealing his gentle coif of blonde hair. His blue eyes shone like pinpricks of moonlight in the darkly lit room. He flashed his devilish smile as he raised his hands, calling for quiet. His teeth were pearly white and perfectly sharp. Reese held the audience's rapt and undivided attention as he began to speak.
My dear friends, my dear coven, what a glorious night. The time we have been waiting for is finally here. We finally are all here, and the time of the final blood moon has finally arrived. She will rise up, and she will cleanse the earth with her might. But we who followed her, we who will bring her forth, we have nothing to fear. Though we will not be spared in this reckoning, we will be escorted into the blessed afterlife, reserved for those who gave their life in support of our goddess. We shall all know what heaven truly is. The glory of the afterlife she has built for us. No human words can describe the perfection, the paradise, the Elysium awaiting us. I should know. I have seen it twice. Yes, I have died twice at the hand of our goddess, for I am the thrice dead prophesied in the old days. On my final death, which will be in only a mere 24 hours, I will be granted my rightful place as he who summoned the lioness. And all members of this coven will be granted access to this kingdom of Aru, while the unfaithful are forced to wait and be judged by Anubis in Duat. We will awaken in our new home. Now, I know that there are some of you who doubt, some of you who question whether or not I will honor my promise and give your names for direct passage into Aru. You question my loyalty to you and the Coven with these doubts, and you question the will of Anubis himself. Anubis, who granted me the power to bestow these gifts onto you, who granted me the fortune enough to get you all onto the land where the reckoning will occur. I have granted you gifts. I have sacrificed love, liberty, and life to bring you with me. I have done everything in my life that I could do for this Coven, and deep down you know this, despite the doubt. Perhaps you question because the goddess demands blood and offerings of sacrifice, but I assure you, in my communion with the goddess and with Anubis, all those who have already given their life in support of her are waiting for us in our room. But let us not dwell on these doubts. With all the love in my heart, I will forgive you the sin of doubt. And I pray to our great and mighty goddess that you will be granted clarity, courage, and conviction. Tonight, my Coven, let us drink in celebration for our impending rapture. For tomorrow, we shall raise hell.
We were gathered in the aviary. Dean and Jeremy were sparring. I was helping Joanna and Birdkeeper in the search for any activity. Joanna and I were also keeping tabs on who could get the most hits, Dean or Jeremy. I had voted for my husband, but Joe had voted for Jeremy. Joanna was winning, but only by the slightest of margins. Scarlett was nervously fiddling with her hair, but Kieran and Marilyn were talking with her about various healing arts that they'd been researching. God, looking back at it now, I almost wish I hadn't... We got a call, and I answered it. And answering that call was the worst mistake of my life.
Urgent incoming call from Amari Agrinia and Alan Grace. Shall I pick up?
Yes, Birdkeeper. Put them through.
Answering call now.
Jordan, Dean, are you there?
Yes, we are here. What's so urgent?
What's urgent? Oh, I don't know. Perhaps the impending war that will occur in your city in under 3 hours?
Excuse me? What the hell are you talking about?
Here is what I know. Long ago, in the time of plagues and floods, there was a goddess, primal, vicious, and destructive. She waged war on most of the human population. There was no way to kill her, as she was a god. The gods created the warriors to protect human life from the wrath of vengeful gods. They defeated her, but there came a prophecy. The prophecy claims that a man who has died 3 times will bring this old goddess back into our realm, and that will be the end of civilization as we know it. The goddess's name is Sekhmet.
There is a cult that we've been aware of for some time now, called the Coven of Sekhmet. They are a group of witches that have for centuries believed that the daughter of Ra-Ka Sekhmet will be born to a member of their coven. About 30 years ago, apparently, that happened, which sparked all of us coming into our warrior genes. I believe King Cedric told you as such before your wedding.
Yeah, he did. Again. I'm not so sure why that's urgent.
It is urgent, Jordan, because the Coven of Sekhmet is in Newark City. Tonight is the 3rd and final night of the blood moon. Sekhmet will be born tonight before the stroke of midnight unless we stop this from happening.
Well, damn. All right. We're on it.
We are on our way. I suggest you get everything in order, and you may want to evacuate that part of the city nearest the cemetery.
Evacuate the north side? Okay.
The warriors will be ready to stand and fight with our new king. Now it is time for you to prepare yourselves for war.
Joanna, can you do the honors of putting up the image on the back wall so we all can see it?
You got it.
We all simultaneously gasped. I looked over to Scarlet, who looked as though she was about to faint. I started to piece it together in my head, and then all at once it hit me. I signaled for Scarlet to talk with me alone, away from the others. She was breathing heavily, but I needed answers and I needed them quickly. Scarlet, love, do you remember when we were fighting the Enchantress and you took your bracelet off? I remember that moment, and I think I see now why, when that happened, you went a little crazy. And I now understand why that bracelet was important. It's you, isn't it? Are you the reincarnation of the goddess Sekhmet?
Yes. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I thought I could just avoid fighting him on my own.
Scarlet, being a part of this team, being a part of this family, means you never have to stand alone. Don't worry, we're not going to let you go dark. I gave her a big hug, and she started to whimper. I held her for a moment longer, and then we both walked to the group. Okay, here's the deal. One thing that I know for certain is that the cult leader is Reese Martin. From what we know of him, he's got the power to take the powers of others. Kieran, do you have any way to prevent him from doing that to us?
I've got you. It'll take a few minutes, but I can have one for each of us.
Great. Dean, call Jared. Joe, run the evac protocol on Birdkeeper. Scarlet, help Kieran with whatever he's cooking up. Jeremy, go get Alejandro, Arson, and Marrow. I have a feeling Alejandro's going to want to be involved in this one, and I have a feeling he's going to be invaluable here. Weren't they, Dayton? They were, but I think it's fair to say that that ended.
Jordan, I need to tell you something.
Dean, I love you, but I think whatever we need to talk about can wait until we've saved the world from literally falling apart.
But
Dean, help Jared with the evacuation. I'm gonna draw up the tactical stuff. We've got work to do. And gang? Aw, bruh, don't say it. It's time to assemble the Guardians. Ugh. Well, damn. As soon as Jared sent us confirmation that the area around Northside Cemetery, which included Revenant Heights and part of Falcon Village, had been evacuated, we met up with the Warriors and Alejandro, Marrow, and Arson. Jared was there, as well as Officer June and a few other police officers.
Jared, may I talk to you for a second?
Of course.
Dad, you know you don't have to be here. We can handle this.
Nice try, Jordan. You can't tell me that my daughter, my son, and son-in-law are about to fight an entire army of cultists and expect me not to fight. Besides, I'd be lying if I didn't say this was exciting. But this is my job. This is my city. And these sons of bitches aren't going to get past me. Not today, not ever.
Rock and roll, Dad. Who knew you were such a badass?
Don't sound so surprised. I've been doing this since before you were born, remember?
Fair point. Well, stay sharp. I shifted away from Jared and checked out these warriors. Amari was in her full battle suit, which consisted of a black bodysuit and a red skirt designed to add flair but not impede movement. On her arms were gold bracers and bangles, with gold bands around her triceps. She had a spear, which I knew could collapse down into a pretty intense saber. She looked like what I imagined a Wonder Woman/Dora Milaje hybrid would look like, which I realized was a pretty apt way to describe her to just about anybody. Alan, aka Hunter, was wearing black with flashes of green here and there, an outfit designed to blend in with the dark. He had his recurve bow slung across his back, and a quiver that seemed to be fuller than I could have ever imagined. That boy was ready. Liza, aka the Slayer, was wearing a black leather jacket, black leather pants, and combat boots. She strangely had a wooden stake on her hip, 4 different daggers, and was holding a battle axe. Looking at her, a normal person would think she didn't necessarily look super deadly. But the only thing I could think was, whew, what a dangerous and powerful woman. The other 7 warriors were dressed in light leather armor that wouldn't have looked out of place at any Ren fair. All the warriors were armed to the teeth. Dean looked at them, and Amari approached him, holding something in her right hand.
Kneel, sire.
As you wish, but, Amari, you don't have to refer to me like that. You can call me Dean.
For this moment, formality is required.
Dean kneeled, and Amari rested his father's battle crown on his head. It looked like a gold laurel wreath, but had an emerald in the center.
This is from your father. When you rise, you shall be in command of the warriors. You will officially be king. Will you rise?
I shall rise.
Excellent. Warriors, kneel before your new king.
As Dean rose, all the other warriors began to kneel. Dean signaled for them to rise.
Warriors, I don't have much to say, other than it is an honor to fight alongside you. This will be difficult, this will be dangerous, as we fight an enemy who believes that they will reach Valhalla if they die in combat. That kind of enemy is reckless and dangerous. They will take you down with them if they can, so be on your guard. We must aim to keep them alive, if at all possible. But do not fear, this is what you have trained for. We will have our victory. Will you stand and fight?
Aye!
Tell me, my comrades, who are we?
We are warriors!
As I watched Dean get them prepared to fight, I honestly didn't think I could possibly be more attracted to him, or more aroused, or, if not aroused, then definitely proud. I began thinking about the honeymoon we still hadn't yet had, but I suddenly was very much looking forward to it. I turned to face Joanna, Marilyn, and Scarlet. Joanna was smirking, and her fingers were sparking again.
Are you ready?
Quite ready.
Damn right, yeah. I was born ready.
Rock and roll, ladies. We've got this. And how about my boys? You know it, Frey.
I'm ready to roll. You know, I'm kind of glad this fight is here at the cemetery.
Why?
You'll see, bud. You'll see.
I turned to look at Alejandro and his 2 charges.
And how about y'all? Are you ready?
Yes. This is personal for me. I've got a few things to say to my lying paramour there. Not just for what he did to me, but for what he did to my girls here. Ain't that right, girls?
That's right, Mr. A. I'm ready to make some waves.
Yeah, Mr. A. Suffice it to say, I'm a little heated.
Well, okay. Try not to kill anyone if you can avoid it.
Death is too good for him. I want him to feel the pain.
He'll feel the burn from me, Mr. A.
Anything for you, Mr. A.
We'll be just fine, Jordan. Don't look now, but here they come.
I turned around. I saw them. The cultists had arrived. They marched forward out of the mist about 50 yards away from us, Reese leading them. As more and more of them emerged, I realized we were clearly outmatched. Alan had been right. There were many of them. But even more worryingly, Some of them had been gifted powers that had been taken and cloned from the Hearthwood boys, as well as Elizabeth and Ember. I cursed under my breath, but then I shook it off and walked forward alone. Reese approached me alone as well. We stared each other down.
This is your one chance, Reese. If you leave Newark City now, you and your cultist family won't be pursued. When this battle begins, your chance to surrender is off the table.
How funny. I was about to say the same thing to you, Jordan. Look, you can just give Scarlet to me. It's not like I'm going to harm her. Quite the opposite, in fact.
So you will not surrender. Fine. You've made your bed. Just know 3 things. This will be quite painful. You will not enjoy this. And though you will be injured, you are not about to die.
No, Jordan, I believe both of us will die today. The only difference is I will live on in paradise, while you non-believers will rot in some unimaginable hellscape.
Well, aren't you a bundle of cheer? Fine. This is war.
I turned and walked towards my crew, before turning around.
On your marks.
Aim.
Steady on.
Charge!
The battle began, and from the beginning strikes it was frenzied. There was the clashing of metal against metal as sword struck shield or blade. Mixed with that was the rushing of magic through the air. Balls of fire sprang forth from people's hands on both sides. Arrows were fired, screams were heard. It would be extremely dumb to try and explain all that was happening all at once, so I will now go section by section. Starting with Kieran, Marilyn, and Liza, who were facing off with an insane number of cultists. Marilyn and Liza were holding their own in simple hand-to-hand combat. However, they were being swarmed, but Kieran had them covered. He knelt to the ground, his birthmark glowing on the back of his neck. His eyes glowed green, and then purple, and then black. He muttered a string of words that no one else could hear. The ground began to rumble, as though something was moving beneath it. And then I realized exactly where they were standing. Hands broke through the ground as bodies across the graveyard pulled themselves up out of the ground and attacked the cultists. Those who had only recently died, fighting those who wanted nothing more than to die for their queen. It's a hell of a sight, let me tell you. I looked at Kieran. Kieran was trembling a bit, but I didn't see him getting tired. A cultist moved to strike Kieran in the back of the head, but Marilyn appeared just in time to uppercut him in the nose, and used those brass-knuckle tasers to shock him into unconsciousness. Moving my attention over to that of Alejandro, Marrow, and Arson. Arson was trading fire blasts with a few deranged cultists, while Alejandro was punching some of them with shadow blasts. One of the cultists managed to reach Marrow, who screamed as she was pulled down. A dagger was raised, but the cultist was thrown sideways into a nearby headstone by Alejandro's shadow blast. The cultist cowered in fear as Alejandro stared him down.
Trying to hurt my girls, are you? Not on my watch, you impudent child. Do you know what happens to boys that lose their shadows? No? Well, neither do I. Let's find out, shall we?
Alejandro held out his hand and absorbed the man's shadow, which looks as crazy as you probably think it does. The cultist dropped to his knees as light emanated from his eyes and open mouth as he imploded with a holy light. He fell on his side, dead.
Mr. A, you saved me.
But of course, no one messes with my girls. Nobody. Not on my watch.
Amari and some of the warriors were doing the best they could on a different part of the graveyard. One cultist commanded large beasts to rise out of clay, making a small army of golem. The cops fired their pistols as best they could, but the clay absorbed their bullets. The golem roared at the warriors that they towered over.
Hunter, cover me.
Got you, girl. Go. Hey, Water Girl, a little help with the clay boys here?
Amari walked past the golems, who tried to attack, but found themselves unable to reach her, with water from Marrow hitting them and turning them instantly into mud. Amari walked up to the cultist, whose eyes glowed the color of clay. As she reached him,
The trouble with golems is that with each one you make, they take a piece of your mind into themselves. You have to divide your consciousness, which means you leave yourself vulnerable.
Amari snapped his neck, and as she did so, golems fell back into earth. My brother, my husband, and I were delivering punches and kicks and perfectly executed theatrical takedowns before punching them until they blacked out. I pulled out Talon, whose black blade managed to shine bright under the moonlight. I made a couple slashes and gashes, but I managed to veer away from any fatal hits. I moved more gracefully in combat than I ever had before. It was as though all of my senses had been heightened. Jeremy let out a couple of yeehaws during a few more memorable moments, such as dodging a cultist gunshot, only to use their gun and hand to shoot 3 of his cultist companions, before breaking his arm with one swift movement and flipping him over and shooting him in the knee. All in a matter of 5 seconds. Dean was delivering powerful single punches that knocked people backwards a minimum of 5 feet, and delivered with that several broken ribs and potentially other body parts. All of the warriors were bulletproof, and every other group had a way of shielding themselves. During one impressive moment of teamwork, Liza, while taking massive gunfire, turned toward one of the ones that was firing at her. They continued to fire at her, but with lightning speed, she used her bracers like Amari's to block bullets until one of them happened to hit her boots, leaving a scuff mark.
Okay, now you've really pissed me off. Oye, bruja, shock me.
What?
Just do it, trust me.
Okay, let's see. Let me try this out. Zoskara.
As Scarlet said the spell word, Liza jumped into the air with the battle axe raised high in the air. The lightning struck the axe, which she brought crashing down into the center of a crowd of cultists. There was an explosion of light. The smell of electric ozone, burnt hair, and singed flesh filled the air. Liza stood in the center and looked back over her shoulder.
Thanks, Bruja Roja. Any more of you chingones want to try that again? Come on, cabrones, bring it.
The cultists in the immediate vicinity wet themselves and passed out, and honestly, I couldn't blame them. Joanna was keeping herself busy by locating any cell phone in the pockets of an unsuspecting cultist and making them explode and catching them on fire. Honestly, I was surprised at how many of them seemed to have phones on their person. I mean, who brings a cell phone to a battlefield? The battling went on for a few more minutes, until I realized a couple of things. The first thing I realized was that I hadn't seen Reese since the start of the battle. The second thing I realized was that the phones had stopped exploding. And the third thing I realized was that Joanna was no longer standing nearby. Joanna!
She's over here, bird boy.
Reese had his arm around her throat, with a knife to her neck. Time seemed to slow, or more accurately, it did slow. The fighting around us stopped. The warriors stopped moving except for Dean. Kieran was struggling to move, but was still able to move a little bit. Jeremy and I were able to move as well, but when I tried to use my powers, they didn't work. Scarlet was able to move and ran up to the raised platform of the nearby mausoleum. She got about 5 feet away from them before Reese signaled for her to stand back.
Reese, let her go!
Well, I'm afraid, my dear, that all depends on you. If you don't kill me for a third time, I'll kill her, and then I will kill all of your friends.
What do you mean, kill you a third time? I've never killed you even once.
Why, yes you have. After you revived me on the bridge in London and realized I wasn't the same Reese you thought you knew, you killed me. I was brought back to life by the Coven then. That was the second time you'd kill me. The first time was all the way back in Ireland when you were naught but 8 years old. That snake bit my leg, but it only did so because it was defending you. Indeed, that snake had been the dagger I was approaching you with. You sensed it and you turned it into a snake and made it bite me. You made it kill me. My heart stopped and the poison took me, and you were able to bring me back from death with ease, aided by the magic of the Fey folk nearby.
Oh my god, that was you! That means this has been planned.
Oh, this was planned from even before you were born. The Coven you were born into, the Daughters of the Moon, that is not the Coven's true name. We are the Coven of Sekhmet.
No, it can't be true.
Just accept it, Scarlet. If you do not, I will kill your lover here. I'll spill her blood all over the battlefield. You know I will. You have 5 seconds. 5, 4.
Don't worry about me. Don't do it.
I won't let you die.
3.
Scarlet, no.
I have to.
2, 1.
Scarlet, tears streaming down her face, had taken the athame she kept on her and plunged it into Reese's chest, directly into his heart. As she did so, the bracelet burst off of her wrist. His eyes went wide with the shock, but his grin remained on his face as time began to run normally again. He dropped his dagger and dropped Joanna, who fell to her knees. Reese fell backward, and as he hit the ground, Scarlet began to change. Her eyes closed as she began to rise up off the platform. Joanna scurried back away from her. Scarlet's body was emanating a purple light that quickly turned to red. She opened her eyes, and her eyes were black. Her hair became streaked with black, and the veins around her eyes became black as well. The light coming from her was blinding, so I had to look away and shield my eyes. But when the light died down, I turned back to look at her. She was changed. For starters, she was dressed like an Egyptian goddess from head to toe. Her skin was golden, as if it had been painted for a ceremony. She smiled, and her teeth were pointed, like that of a cat.
Finally, I've been free! It's good to be back. Let's see. I have so much to do. Come, my followers. You shall continue to serve me well, as you already have been doing so loyally. Will help me cleanse this world of evil, and all will bow before me as queen.
She snapped her fingers. She and the remaining members of the cult of Sekhmet vanished in a cloud of red smoke. Those who were left on the battlefield just stood there. I crumpled to my knees.
What just happened?
We lost. Sekhmet has risen. Thank you for listening to Red Wing. Today's episode was written by J.V. Hampton Van Sant. In episode 10, you heard the voice talents of J.V. Hampton Van Sant, Ellie Hirschman, Amanda Jacobson, Skylar Paring, Christine Osimo, Jordan Cobb, Brittany Nicholson, Chris the Toph Green, Lainey Hobbs, Dane Shiner, Andrew Giada, David Alt, and Kate Sanchez. For the complete cast list, please visit redwingpodcast.com. The title this week is based on the song Start a War. I first heard this song on Season 2, Episode 1 of Riverdale. You'll find a link to the song in the show notes. It's a pretty rockin' tune. Episode art this week is by J.V. Hampton Van Sant. Our music is composed by Nico of We Talk of Dreams. If you want to listen to any of these themes, please visit our website. Check out our show notes for links to our merch, our social media, and our website. As always, stay safe and fly high, heroes.